Welcome to Greenable Woodbridge. I'm your host, Carolyn Ehrlich, and today we have a very interesting show. With us is Captain Paul DeLeo with Fire District Number 2 in Port Reading, and George Effinger, who is the Section Fire Warden for the New Jersey Forest Fire Service. And I have to tell you that every time I sit with these gentlemen, and we're going to be together for half an hour, you're going to be learning, because they have so much to share, and really, how much do we really know about fires and fire prevention and how it impacts the Woodbridge? So when, as you know, we're very involved with the Sustainable Jersey program, and we're always looking for ways and ideas that they give us for points. And one of the things that they recommended was that we do a community wildfire plan. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This doesn't even impact us. We don't have to worry about wildfires. George is laughing. Paul is smiling because I was very wrong. So I called up Paul and he said, Carol, we do need that. So tell us about it and what it is and how it impacts the town, both of you.
Well, if I could start, it's really a great program that the state has taken the initiative on to involve the fire service and some of the things we don't see every day in the fire service. So it puts our focus on places that may be concerned to structures or people and everything, but it also puts that mindset in when you're talking about just burning wood in your backyard, in your chimney, all those types of safety things come back to us. But it provides setbacks, and talking about sustainable New Jersey, it's very important because anytime you have a fire, you have some kind of toxin released into the atmosphere. So it affects our environment, affects our way of life or quality of life in Woodbridge. So it's always a concern, any kind of fire, but it's also about safety too. So, but the plan is so extensive, and I'll let George touch on that, but I'll tell you what, I've even learned more things through the program that the township has taken involved in. I'm very proud to be a part of it.
So there's like a couple different parts that all tie into the national cohesive fire strategy, and the prevention part of it is one. One is the Community Wildfire Prevention Plan, or CWPP we refer to it. There's Ready, Set, Go, Firewise communities. All of those tie into wildfire prevention, whether it be marshland, grass, fields, or forest. All of them have a little bit different reaction to fire in New Jersey. So the CWPP addresses it on a community-wide level. Firewise communities could be a small section of Woodbridge. You know, if one little area, say Avenel, wanted to become a Firewise community, they could do that on their own. So they all tie into that prevention plan throughout the state, and then we have them throughout the whole state, both up in Division A, Division B, and C, and doesn't matter what the fuel type is, they all apply. So it's a good way to prevent fires from impacting homes in the communities.
What are some examples of what's in Firewise?
Firewise deals with defendable space. That's the area around your house and how you can make your own home defendable from a wildfire.
Oh, you got to explain that.
It's real simple. It's landscaping techniques, making sure your gutters are clean, making sure that you don't have wood piled up on your deck, making sure that you clean underneath the deck so that you don't get embers into the leaves. If it's not really the immediate impact of the fire, but the ember wash coming in and finding a ripe fuel next to a home that'll ignite the home. Something as simple as making sure you have screens on all your soffit vents and on the vents of the end of the house, so that if embers land inside the soffit, it doesn't set the home on fire. Construction techniques. If you have cedar shingles on your roofs, okay, those are ember-rich catch-alls, you know. So construction techniques and building techniques can also apply into that Firewise community, and that defendable space around homes. It's a proven fact. I've been out west on large-scale fires, 600,000 acre fires, and it'll burn right up to where defendable space is adequate, and guess what? The fire goes out and the house is saved. Where right next door there could be no defendable space, and it'll demolish the house. It also gives us, as firefighters, a lot of room to work to save a house. Okay, nationally they want 30 feet. Here in New Jersey, especially in the rich pineland area in South Jersey, we want 100 feet because 100 feet gives us a lot more room to defend that home. There's techniques that we use. We use firing off of lawns to send fire back into the main fire that's coming. Working with the structure protection companies, Middlesex County has a wildland task force established. We get fire engines to protect homes, and we do the burning out behind the homes and send the fire back into itself. They monitor it. They put out anything that might catch in the lawn or in the landscaping, put that out, save the home. Real simple. It's a really basic program where it's a coordinated effort between us and the fire departments. 2 years ago, we came and gave a wildland urban interface class here in Woodbridge for the fire department. It was at Port Reading, and it was an invitation to any of the departments in town. Those that participate in the wildfire plan for the county that are on that task force showed up, get some information. They learn about where they put the engine, how to put the engine in the driveway, not hook up to hydrants, work off your tank water. All these things that we come and teach to these guys is brand new to them sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it's been years before they had the class when they took Fire One, when we first introduced wildfire to them when they were back in the basic firefighter course. But it's a lot of refresher for them. And then anytime that they want to do it again, all they got to do is call. We'll come out and teach again. Absolutely. It's a good thing for them to know. Not that we have a lot of fires here, but it's one of those things that if you don't do it, you're not going to remember what to do when the time comes.
Probably don't have a lot of fires because a lot of people are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So, and that's part of it, being vigilant to your surroundings. Like we said, in Woodbridge, we don't have a lot of forestry or a lot of wildland areas, but we do in some areas. And if your home is close to those things, and some of the things that Georgia talked about, it's very, very important to keep that in the forefront of your mind. Build up. Some people maybe do something illegal dumping someplace. Be wary of that. Report those kinds of conditions to not let your home be a victim. Be vigilant of that. But just going back to what he said about the training, it was invaluable training for the fire service because we have kind of a priority list that we go by for every fire, and it goes pretty much like this: life safety, incident stabilization, then property conservation. And that's just about every single fire that we go to. So on a general level, when we're going out, we're constantly putting those things in the forefront of our mind because those are the most important things. We want to save lives, keep our lives saved. Then we want to stabilize the incident. And then at the end of the incident, if we get a fire out in a structure, we want to make sure that we're protecting people's property, not using too much water and anything that can be salvageable. That's very, very important to us. However, when it comes to wildland fires, we actually don't follow the same model. And that's something that was probably new to a lot of people. It switches the last two. It goes to life safety, then it goes to then it goes to property conservation, then to incident stabilization, because a wildland fire can be so unpredictable with topography, wind, fuel loads, things like that. You cannot stabilize the incident immediately. You want to go right for property conservation and then work with the teams from the Forestry Service to stabilize the incident afterwards. So you switch the last two priorities. So it's kind of like it's a new tactic. It's not a new tactic. It's just different from what we normally use.
It's something that we use in the wildland world. It's totally different than a structure fire.
Exactly.
Because if you're dealing on a large-scale incident, something that's 200, 300 acres, you have 300 acres of perimeter that you got to worry about all the homes. So, do we have enough engines in Woodbridge to do that? No, they're going to have to call the task force to get engines here to protect those homes on that 200-acre block.
And in that area, they can be so expansive in some areas. We cannot just keep chasing it with hoses and keep moving fire engines. But what he said before is the tactics are wonderful, and the fact that we do have a lot of fire departments in Woodbridge Township that are part of this task force that have like 1,000 gallons of water in their tank, and they've gone to the training and the positioning to protect homes. We stretch lines to the rear, to, 2 to 3 houses at a time when we spread ourselves out.
So you didn't just sit at a desk to learn about this. You went out in the field.
We haven't done any. Well, I don't know if you guys have participated in the task force drills.
We have done the task force.
Okay, so yes. They have gone out and played in the field with it. When I came and gave the lecture, it was just classroom-based, PowerPoint, and we went over all the cards that we give them a card to put in their run book in each engine and the Chief's vehicle, and it gives you a size up, how to size up the house, where you want to be, things like that. So it's just a refresher, they can pull it out of the Chief's vehicle and go, okay, yeah, this is what we need to do, And the biggest one is backing down driveways if it's a long driveway, so that you can leave if you need to. Again, it goes to life safety first.
Right.
Their lives are just as important as the folks in the home. So, making sure you're pointing out so that you can get out of the driveway. Here, I don't think there's too many, quarter-mile, half-mile long driveways.
A few.
Some sections.
Some of the areas that I cover in Somerset, it's not uncommon to have a 3/4 mile long driveway.
Right.
So you want to make sure that once you get in there, either you can turn around or you got to back up that driveway to get in there. So,
but I think by participating in the program and the fire department itself, the cooperation between the state and then the new Sustainable New Jersey that we're going to use, these programs and these tools is probably the best thing that we can do, because it brings all those things that are not readily on your mind back to being on your mind. So once we start spearheading this in the township, we're going to spread this, because what we have you're probably familiar with the Woodbridge Township Fire Officers Association. So that disseminates a lot of the information and coordinates some of the training where we can all train together. Because I'm only one of 9 fire districts in Woodbridge Township, as you know. But because we meet on a bi-monthly schedule, we can discuss things, tactics, strategy, better training, and it's really a good organization. So we're going to bring that back to them, and we're going to expand on all these programs and get brochures out. Because today, George brought me a nice gift package.
Yes.
Nice brochures that we're going to get to them. And the better part about that too is that each district participates in a fire prevention program in October. Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about fire prevention.
Well, fire prevention is a great community outreach that every department in this town does. I think all across the United States. It goes back to the reason we have it in October is a little quiz. Why?
Why?
I know George knows.
Is that when Smokey the Bear was born?
No. Very close. Good guess, though. Actually, there was a very, very big fire, very important fire to our country at one time in a major city. Chicago fire was happening in October, so they established the Fire Prevention Week that week. And it gives the chance for the fire departments to go out, go to the schools, have open houses, have the community come in and to familiarize themselves with the fire department, the firefighters in town, which is a great program. I mean, I love that sort of stuff. I do. And develop their own programs to get the message out on many things. And this year, especially, I know in Port Reading, in District 2, that we're gonna push for this, because we do have some wildland stuff in Port Reading. We had talked about that before. Some brackish water, some maybe you want to touch on that. In Port Reading, we have a couple areas near the turnpike that can be a little bit volatile because of some of the...
Phragmites is the fuel load there. And Phragmites is an invasive plant to New Jersey. And it takes over where cattails were originally established. So, it looks almost like tires are burning. It puts up that big, thick, black smoke, very acidy. So it could affect people's breathing. So, being prepared for that. It also impacts interstate commerce with the turnpike right there. So, if you get one there, I know I'm coming, because somebody down in our office will say, how come we don't have any little red trucks on the turnpike? And I'll be there. So,
but we've done a lot of wetlands mitigation, so that should get rid of the Phragmites and lower that risk.
It does. There's treatments that can be done. An aquatic Roundup can kill it. Also prescribed burning can also kill it. It does come back generally in about 30 days. If you have a fire in there, it'll be growing back again in 30 days.
That's amazing.
And usually from, I want to say, if we have no snow and no ice, you could probably burn Phragmites starting in February. Even if there's ice, you could burn it off the top of the ice, and it'll go right through till May before it turns green. So, it's a very flammable fuel. Very flammable.
I would just like to say that the most important thing is to be vigilant, okay? Because we're in such a tight area. We're considered an urban zone, you know, according to NFPA when they go by the capita per square mileage and everything. But what we need to do is we need to have the community stay vigilant. They see something, they got to call 911. You know, don't just call your friend and pick up your smartphone to video. You know, please. You know, I mean, you can do that after the fact, and you know, for your own personal reasons. But you need to let us know so we can get out there quickly. A small fire, untreated or unattended to, is going to just grow into a bigger fire.
Exactly.
And everybody's lives, the environment, the wildlife. That I think we enjoy a lot of wildlife. I mean, we have a lot of wildlife coming into our town, which I think is wonderful. And you know, that's a concern to ours as well. So, but just getting back to fire prevention, we do a lot of different things with the schools. In fact, we have an EMS week coming up in May. We're landing a helicopter at School 9 to get the kids, you know, comfortable with, you know, all of the services of emergency services. We also have participated in autism awareness for the fire service and for emergency. The EMS division has done that, where they've done some training to help us, you know, interface with the autistic people and let them know that they're going to be a little more comfortable with us. We just participated in the POAC walk yesterday. So, but we teach fire prevention. I'm going to go alliteration on you in the 3 Ps, and I'm Paul, so I'm going to stay with the Ps. You know, it's that prevention comes first, then that planning and practice. I tell this to all the kids in the schools. If you don't have prevention, you know, that something can happen. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to know what to do when an emergency happens. And I know that we need to know what to do. We're always thinking that if there's an emergency, what do I do? And it's good with the schools, but I always say you got to take it home and do it at home. And then you have to practice your plan. You know, make sure you're practicing so you have a meeting place and things like that. So some of these things are very important to bring to the fire prevention week, but we try to teach them all the time as well.
So that same 3 Ps also apply to that Ready, Set, Go program, which is put out by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. So that has 3 parts to it. It's all make sure you have a bag packed and you're ready to go. You have a plan on how to evacuate and when to go, you know. And the cool thing, that was developed in Texas after large-scale wildfires there, and the IAFF have taken on going to that as far as they're the lead agency, where the NFPA does the FireWise and the CWPP. They give you all the stuff. You know, he can call up the girls down there in Virginia and say, hey, we're going to have a day here at our firehouse. The other fire chiefs in town can call up and say, hey, we're going to have another day. They get all the free handouts from them, little backpacks and all the information that you can hand to the homeowner. And not only does it apply to wildland fire, but you can also use the planning process for evacuations for flooding or anything else. As long as you identify the planned evacuation routes for wildfire, and they're similar, which they should be because all the Phragmites are going to be in your low-lying areas, you can apply them for flooding and stuff like that. So it's a dual-purpose thing that kind of draws in OEM besides the fire department and police. OEM can get involved in that planning process to get people evacuated for flooding or for wildfire.
That's something you have in Port Reading that you got to be concerned with.
The resources are out there, and then thanks, like you said, to the IAFF, you know, we pull from them for a lot of different types of training. International Association of Fire Chiefs as well has a bunch of material that we can always lean on. So, you know, we have the resources, and it's great that the fire departments actually put them to use and do those things. You know, to start and get with our LEPCs. And like I said, we go back to our township fire officers meetings and we discuss these things, and we make sure that people are actually involved in the learning process and disseminating the information. So it's a really
wonderful. Each district learns something, they take it back to all the other districts.
Yeah, and then they can communicate that out to their local you know, citizens of their area.
So the Ready, Set, Go is also part of the Sustainable New Jersey too. So you can get points for joining that. Besides the CWPP, and if somebody in town decides to be a FireWise community, the town gets the points as well.
I think you decided to do that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we did because of the associations and things like that.
You know, there's a lot of points there. You know, I think there's 15 and 10 and another 10 for something else. So there's like 35 points there.
You know that we're the Sustainable Jersey champions.
Right.
And if anybody takes that championship from us, the mayor is going to be very, very angry with me. So we have to get all those points.
So you know, those are all good good things as far as fire prevention. And then the planning part goes with it, and the training part goes with it as well. Looking forward, I'm sure he's going to kind of curtail me to come back down and do a refresher. We haven't done one in 2 years, so it's about time. You know, I'm more than willing to come down and train anybody. You know.
So I first met you last year. We had an environmental day called it a BioBlitz at the Ernie Oros Preserve. And you were there with Smokey the Bear.
Smokey Bear.
Smokey Bear.
The only word "the" is in the song, so that the lyrics make sense.
Okay, Smokey
His name
Bear.
is Smokey Bear.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about
I don't sing well.
the preserve, first of all, because that might be our main forest, so to speak.
Yeah.
You have a couple other wood blocks that are all woods. The picture behind you is all of that area, and you have mixed hardwoods, you have shrubs and highly flammable shrubs in there too. There is some Phragmites that are in that area as well. So you have, the hazard is there. Every town has the hazard of a wildfire. It's how much use and how many people come in there to do that, you know, do their different things that they do in the park, walking, hiking, okay, bicycling. Those are the ignition sources that we have, okay, that human factor that falls into that park. So like that park there, you get some people walking, birding, things like that. So there's not as much risk there, so to speak. Whereas if you have a railroad line and it's got Phragmites on both sides, like coming up along the turnpike, all it takes is a bad break on the train, or the other one is the train decides to grind the track, the railroad decides to grind the surface of the track, and it's a red flag day. And off to the races, you could be chasing fire for a couple hours. So the hazard exists throughout all of Woodbridge. The risk is the folks that are around there. 98% of all wildfires across the nation are human caused in some way, shape, or form. Guy hits a telephone pole, wire comes down, lights the bushes on fire, off to the races. There's a large fire right now at 16,000 acres in Virginia, in Augusta County. It was caused by a motor vehicle accident and car fire that set 16,000 acres on fire in Virginia.
That's crazy.
That started the 3rd of May, I think, or the 3rd or 4th of May. And they're still fighting. It's only 60% contained.
Whoa.
So, you know, the hazard's everywhere. It just needs that ignition source. And 98% of the time it's human caused.
So this is a good lead into going a little deeper into the prevention, especially now that we're coming into the spring and the summer.
Absolutely.
And people are outside. What are the summer tips?
You know, again, he talked about, you know, what are the causes, but we also have to talk about, well, how can we minimize if it does happen, what can we do to minimize it? Like, you know, clearing things. Like some people don't clean the leaves and they compact down. I think that's called duff, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe he wants to talking about duff with the fuel load. You know, it adds and adds. If you don't, you know, people got to maintain their areas and look to maintain the areas around their houses to make it safer. But you know, all the prevention things that they have to keep in mind. You know, they always have to think it's not happening now, it's not happening today, but you know, what could happen, you know, and we're there to help them with that. We're there to give them the information, some of the things to point out, and that's what the community outreach that we're going to be doing, you know, now and in Fire Prevention Week is all about. Is just trying to get those things into focus for them, to let them know, hey, you got to start thinking about these things. You know, we're going to be there to help you as well as we can, but you know, let's work together and make both our jobs
this
easy.
Time of year, you brought up the outdoor barbecues, outdoor fire pits, okay? In New Jersey, Division of Fire Safety says 25 feet away from the structure for a fire pit, okay? The fire inspectors or the fire marshals, I don't know what term you guys use here.
With both.
Okay, so they have no jurisdiction in a residential other than to make sure you got a smoke detector, a CO detector, and a fire extinguisher, okay? So they can't enforce anything about that.
We have a town ordinance.
So yeah, I was just going to say we have to have an ordinance.
If you have an ordinance, then you can enforce it.
Right.
Okay. So in general, like general campfire safety, making sure that you have water nearby. Make sure you have a hose or sand or shovel. I get a lot of fires that are caused by people with wood stoves or fireplaces. They take their wood ash and shovel it out into a bucket, and then they take it and dump it on the edge of their property, and they think it's out, but they should have put water in it and stirred it up, and they dump it out there, and then 4 hours later they can't figure out why all the woods are on fire behind their house. You know, something as simple as using a metal bucket. I've heard stories where they put it in a plastic bucket and put it in the garage, and then the house catches fire.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
It's all of these simple common sense things.
Yeah.
And I left some campfire safety stuff with him today, and he can take that and hand it out, and you can make photocopies of it if you need more.
Perfect.
It's free from one of those agencies, whether it be NFPA or somebody, but they're all free. You just
That's great.
send them an email and say, I want some stuff.
We have a few minutes left, and I just want to say...
I think she has 2 questions.
I know, I've had nothing to do sitting here. But before we started airing, you guys were talking about how passionate you are about your jobs and how long you've been doing it. So just take a minute just to tell your personal story about being in the fire service.
Oh, okay. Young guys go first?
Yeah, young guys go first.
Well, I was a child. My grandfather was a Port Reading firefighter. He died at 97, Daniel J. McDonald. I'm very happy to mention his name. He's very inspirational to me. And as a small child, it brings you by the firehouse and everything. So he got me involved in it when I was in college at the same time. Growing up like 18, 19, got me to the fire service. But I think a lot of my upbringing, my father being in sports and like to try and achieve things, do the impossible thing, you know, and being kind to people and then helping out in the community. My father was always volunteering for coaching sports and things like that. So he was kind of a role model for me. But once I started with the fire service, I realized how great of a service it is, because there's so many different things you constantly learning. You're never done learning in the fire service.
Right.
I still go to classes today. I'm sure we all still go to classes today.
I learned a lot sitting
but
here.
there's stuff that we're expanding and being progressive on many levels. In Port Reading, we're about to get a search and rescue boat with the help of Buckeye Pipeline. So these types of things to expand and to be able to do more things and serve the community more things is a passion, and to be involved in that and to have that training and apply that training. I think it's Maslow's has a hierarchy of needs, right?
Right.
And one of the highest needs is purpose, is being able to apply your skill and serve a purpose and accomplish something. So I have a deep drive for that in me and I probably got it from my grandfather and my father who were skilled at their craft. So I like being skilled at my craft and going doing those things. But 30 years now in, and I'd love to get
family legacy of giving a lot.
Yes.
And George, how about for you?
Well, I've been involved in fire EMS for 36 years, doing wildland fire for almost 20. I started out in the wildland world as just a crewman on a crew here in the state. Made about 15 trips out west as just a crewman. Was a line EMT on one assignment in Minnesota. When the job came up, I applied and took the civil service test and got it 6 years ago. When I look back at the little school history book, first grade, it said I wanted to be a wildland firefighter or a smoke jumper. So it took me 50 years to I got the job when I was 50, and never looking back. Everything is good.
Great.
I volunteer as well, like Paul says. It's a student of fire.
That is
regardless if it's structural, wildland. I'm also hazmat tech, so you never stop learning. As a student of fire, all of the different disciplines you got to follow, because every one of them is out to get you. When you look at it that way, you got to follow it.
You got to.
And the learning never ends. Hopefully in June I'm going to Florida to the National Prescribed Fire Training Academy down in Tallahassee and learn some more for prescribed burning and smoke management.
Terrific.
So
well,
it's like
the two of you are informative and I think most especially inspirational. And for any young people out there that want to become a volunteer, is it the Explorer program?
Some departments have
that, right? So
just come into the firehouse, come and ask.
We'll get you
involved.
Our doors are always open. Well, thank you both very, very much. If you can believe the half an hour is over already, so thank you.
Well, I'll be more than happy to come back. I'm sure Paul would. So if you want to do
I might take you up on that, right? Okay, so thank you for watching Greenable Woodbridge and for being part of the excitement and part of the change.